Oh, okay. Okay. We're rolling right now.
Good.
Yep.
All right, ready? I got a countdown or something. Somebody got it. Okay, yeah.
Cool.
You know, this is a special time in all of our lives because, as we all know, the world has changed. And one of the most important aspects of how we get back in our flow and how we rediscover ourselves in this new world and rediscover how to execute our God-given visions and our personal visions is recognizing who's in our lives. Who are the closest people to us that will literally serve as the bridges that will carry us from where we are to our destiny. Mm-hmm. So we're here in Atlanta right now. I'm with my good friend, Micaiah Dominguez-Brown.
Hey.
And I'm yours truly, Marcus Gill. And we want to have a conversation about old relationships, how to transition to the new and greater relationships that we're experiencing today. How you feel about that?
I'm feeling really excited about it because there was one day that I just woke up and I was thinking to myself in this new home that I'm in Georgia, moving, relocating from New York, thinking about all of what's in front of me and the new promise and the beauty in life now. I said, I wish that all of my friends, all of my family that have experienced the brokenness of relationship, specifically with divorce, that they will also get to experience renewed life, renewed hope, renewed joy in remarriage. And then it came to me that we're not talking about divorce, that there are elements of it, there are nuances within it that we're just not speaking about as a church community. And if we're not talking about it, then there's no support for it. And if there's no support for it, then how can we move forward into rebuilding? There's no resource available to us to actually restore and to help us adjust and transition into new life. So the first person I thought of calling was you.
Okay.
Because you also, from what I remembered about following you on social media and hearing your story, was that you are also divorced and also very successfully adjusted and in your new space, rooted and secure in your new space. And I thought, who better to talk to about the lack of support and what it looks like to struggle, to strive, and to be successful after a divorce experience.
You know, one thing that I've learned is that transparency is the best parent. You know, our parents are teachers. So transparency is the greatest teacher, especially in these days and times where people just want you to be real. They want to hear the truth. And you know what I say? I always call you Dr. Micaiah, right? I've been calling you that for years. Dr. Micaiah, I'm going to call you that legally. One thing that I wish so many would have done for us would have been to talk about marriage for real, so that we wouldn't have to talk about divorce so much. You know, most people would talk about marriage in the space of how good it is and how blissful it is and how over the moon it takes you, right? But what I even hate it about my current marriage. And I love my wife now. Like, I absolutely love my wife now. But I hate the fact that there's so much that I have to learn by happenstance. And learn by default.
Trial by fire.
About marriage and even about myself.
Right.
Because so many that have gone before us haven't had the real hard conversations about marriage. And because of the lack of preparation and, just real talk about the whole thing, not just about, the smashing of the cake in each other's face and the honeymoon, but talking about everything that goes into marriage. I think had we had more of those conversations, we wouldn't have to talk so much about divorce.
Right.
Because if we knew the truth, many of us would never get married. And many of us would wait to get married. And many of us would learn more about ourselves first so that we can marry the right person or get married in the right time. And then our expectations would have been so much different.
Right.
But unfortunately, we're in this place where we have to talk about the failed marriages so that we can help people be restored to have a good marriage. Right.
And just a little background about why I'm even here with you and how I got to this space. And it's so funny to me that you call me doctor because I'm actually studying. I'm in the pursuit of becoming a relationship scientist, if you will.
See, I'm a prophet.
Doing
even on a podcast.
Empirical research about social psychology and what it looks like to form relationships and to recover from failed relationship. So right now I'm in the PhD program at Liberty University online.
Nice.
Functioning and flowing through that and learning the statistics and learning, creating my own research, really a thesis about what post-divorce adjustment looks like.
Okay.
But that curiosity started when I was married because the conversations were lacking. So I completely hear you when you say there's not enough conversation about healthy marriage, the difficulties in marriage, the challenges, and the beauty, the fun, the friendship in marriage. Right. But as I was watching my previous marriage tank, I had all of these questions about what it takes to make marriage work, how you can actually build a successful marriage. Like, what are the pillars? What's the foundation? How do we make this work outside of course, God being at the center and being that third chord? Right. What does it take? What's the skill set?
Really tell me the truth.
Tell me the truth. Yeah. So I sought that truth through formal education by going back to school while the marriage was failing, going to pursue my master's degree in mental health counseling, becoming a relationship specialist at that point so that I could learn what those components were. But it's in those pages that I was able to see all the red flags, all the signs of divorce, the predictors, not just the signs, but the scientific predictors of divorce, which we could probably have a separate conversation about.
Sure.
But I saw all of those things on the pages alive in my relationship, and I knew where it was headed. So I prepared myself for entering into that space as unfortunately becoming a statistic of divorce and had to rebuild from there. But ever since, I've been on this road of discovery to figure out what does divorce support look like, because I've been through the secrecy, the shame of it, and just...
Especially being in the ministry and being a preacher, that's an automatic disqualification. You can do everything else in the world, but if you get a divorce, well, you know what? I'll take that back. Nowadays, it seems to be celebrated. But in my time, when I got a divorce, 2013, it was fine. I walked out of there. I walked out.
Same.
In 2012, and it was still a rough thing, especially like upstate New York. I was in a place called Newburgh, New York. And then, right away it was, you need to sit down. And I'm like, no, I should be preaching even better. I've gotten delivered from something. But people would rather you stay in a miserable, tight, abusive, ugly, dark situation that oftentimes, let's be real, we created. I don't ever blame my ex-wife. I had my experience with her, but I never blame her for it. Because like you said, there are so many red flags that we get. And you know what my biggest mistake was? And I think a lot of great men and a lot of great women make this mistake too. We see the red flags, but we also see that individual's potential that they don't see about themselves. And we hang on and we try to train them to manifest the potential that we see that they don't see about themselves. And what happens is we end up dismissing our possibilities because we're just about killing ourselves, trying to manifest their potential for them. And they have no desire to be greater than who they are. But because we see it and we love them and we got so much support and drive, for this other person, we ignore those red flags because we say, okay, I see it, but that's not going to last. Because I see what they can become. And my willingness to sacrifice my life for her potential almost absolutely ruined my destiny.
Wow.
Till I got myself together and was like, you know what? This is not the will of God. And, I got out.
That's everything. Yeah. Noticing that marriage was not the will of God for my life was the game changer. Because as long as I was committed to the marriage and under the guise of God hates divorce, so why would I leave something? Why would I enter into something? Why would I choose something that God hates? And that was my motivating factor, right? That was my incentive to stay, is that I want to please God. I made a vow before God. We're in a covenant with God, and I wanted to honor that more than anything else. And so I believe that in my particular situation, and maybe some of you also have had this experience, is that we stay committed to relationship because just for the sake of commitment.
Right.
For commitment's sake, I will stay. And because I see the value in marriage being a cornerstone of families, and families then contributing to our church family and society at large, right? That a healthy marriage could really change and shift and empower future generations. I wanted that so badly. I had made a vow to myself that I was going to have one marriage, and that it was going to be forever because I've seen on both sides of my family the breakdown of marriage. My dad's side, divorce was prevalent. Multiple marriages were the story. On my mom's side, everybody stayed committed, stayed down, ride or die, but the relationships weren't the healthiest that I've seen. So I wanted to be the first, and I made that vow. But what happens to us when we continue to commit to a vow where that is destroying us is that exactly what you said. I'm holding myself back from receiving the full potential for myself, the promise of the future and the vision that God put inside of me, and knowing that I would be forgiven, and knowing that this was not God's will for my life was what freed me to make the decision.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we're keeping God as a priority in the conversation. You know, I don't want to run from it. I'm a man of God. So everything I do is all around a revelation that I believe God gives me. And the revelation I got in that season of my life, being just like you, right? Trying to stay committed. I made a vow, like, you know, so many that are listening right now have done, you know. I realized that oftentimes we can be committed to God's permissive will and not his perfect will. And it just is what it is. It is what it is. Everybody can go in the comments and write me and blog about this and say that I'm a heretic for saying this, but it is what it is. Many people make a vow to God's permissive will because he's allowing it, but it's not really what he wants. So at the end of the day, does he hate divorce? Absolutely, because he hates when we commit to the wrong thing. He hates when we commit and dedicate ourselves to the wrong will. His permissive will is the wrong will. It's what he allows. He allowed you to get married and stay married as long as you did.
Because I had free will to choose.
Free will, absolutely. But when you ignore those red flags and you even see signs, you're now committing to his permissive will that feels good for a while. You know, for a season, it feels great. You know, you feel like it's the perfect will because things are good. And then after a while, you're trying to escape the permissive will. So that you can find your way back to his perfect will. So does he hate divorce? Yes, because divorce is a result of our disobedience and our impatience.
Okay, we gonna need more time. I can already tell
that's really what I've experienced.
This deserves a part two. And additionally, right, what I've been reading and studying of late is that with marriage, when we vow that the two become one, that's legit.
Absolutely.
It's valid through psychological research, right? There's this thing called cognitive overlapping.
Okay.
And that means that when we're in relationship, especially like the one in marriage, that's so intimate, that's so spiritual, that's so physical in nature, that we start to inherit the beliefs, the values, the ideology, the practices. Our lives overlap in such a way that our identities are overlapped, right? One on top of the other. It's layered and becomes less and less distinguished from each other. So if that be the case, the two becoming one, spiritually, we know that to be a biblical principle, right? A fact. But now with the psychology behind it as well, God would hate to see that we have to now pull apart, strip away, and relearn ourselves as our own individual person that he created.
Right.
So of course he would hate divorce because it is the tearing away. It's almost like I tell my clients, you know, it's like pouring 2 vials of sand together in a container. A lot of people do this in their wedding ceremonies, right? To symbolize how challenging it would be, or well, how beautiful it is to merge together and to become one, but also how difficult it would be with grains of sand to separate out who you are. And then the question arises, once divorce comes along, it challenges your identity. Who am I? Who am I now? And that throws off our confidence in ourselves. It throws off our confidence in relationship. And for me, what it did, it threw off my confidence in God.
Wow. Oh, man.
God, are you here? Do you see me? Do you know what's going on? So now what does my life mean? Of course, God would hate divorce because that process of asking the questions, figuring it out, having a complete loss is a total loss of identity, self-worth, of belonging, of connection. Not just with your previous partner, but with him.
The late, great Dr. Miles Monroe, and anytime I hear something, I have to let you know who said it. He said, divorce is worse than death.
I agree.
If you look him up and read some of his books.
No, he's phenomenal.
He literally said, and when I heard that for the first time, I said, what? and he said, divorce is worse than death. He said, at least you know exactly what death is. It's over. It's final. There's nothing else to be done. There's no more conversations. You don't ever have to see this person again. You know, it ended because of death. That's it. He said, but divorce, y'all are both still living, and now you're both on a new journey, trying to rediscover, prove yourself, prove to the other person you're better off without. The drama with the kids, the money,
child,
everything.
I'm done.
He said, divorce is worse than death. And so let me ask you this though, and maybe this will help somebody as well. But like, have you been totally healed? Have you rediscovered yourself in totality in terms of whatever you feel like you lost from your first marriage?
Okay.
I'll go after you.
I wasn't expecting that question, but that's a real question. I think that it takes time. The moments that I think that I've made it and that I feel like I've really figured everything out and I know exactly who I am, here comes a trigger. Here comes a song. Here comes a thought. Here comes an issue in my current marriage that is completely unrelated to my husband, completely unrelated to my new life or my new sense of self. 100% still linked to the trauma and the drama that was associated with my previous marriage. Wow. So because, and this is, I think where I agree that divorce is worse than death, because the issues continue. Even though the marriage has seen its finality, you still must coexist in the world with this other person. And because I have children with my ex-husband, there are significant constant conversations that need to happen about how we're raising them, what we're going to do, where the kids are going to live, all those details. It's a fight.
So you have it like that. I want to say fortunate, but I don't want to say fortunate, but I want to say fortunate. I don't have that part of drama with my first marriage because the child that we had together went to heaven. Little Zelia died 3 weeks after birth. Like she literally, I say this jokingly sometimes, but she came home and saw what was going on and said, I'm not doing this.
You know, you a mess. You a whole mess for that.
She said, I'm out. She's the smartest person in the world. She said she came to earth and saw all this drama and was like, I'm out, going back to be with my God. But, you know, that piece I don't have to deal with. God blessed me in that way to where even when I went through the divorce, I filed and everything. Don't put folks and send me to hell if they want to. Believe me, I'm not going to hell. But, you know, it was so to the point, my ex-wife didn't even respond to the court documents.
Wow.
And so the judge, after about 6 weeks of just waiting for her to respond, I won by default. So I didn't have to worry about no alimony, no child support, nothing like that. Like, so it was almost like it never happened, so to speak, in my life. So the Lord blessed me in that way. So that's why I'm asking you, because most people probably watching and hearing this don't have that. Oh my goodness. I mean, it hurt to have to bury my baby.
Of course.
But my God, to be able to walk away from that situation and be able to literally pretend like it never happened, I think your story is going to help so many more people that have to coexist with the ex.
Yeah.
That they see as the devil.
And this is it's what contributes to complex and prolonged grief. If divorce is a death of sorts, then we need time to process. We need to be able to integrate that understanding of this social role as a wife, this identity as my previous partner's partner, being able to relearn yourself. That should feel secure, and there should be like a period on the end of that sentence where you can finally like breathe and you know that you're free. But because you're forever bound to this person, no matter how much healing I do or however much progress I make, whatever mountains of influence I get to reach the top of, I will still have to humble myself in collaborating, cooperating, coexisting with my ex-husband. And it is not easy at all. Now, when I filed, I did so uncontested. I did so without asking for anything. And I thought that my approach would then render me some type of peaceful coexistence with him, right? I didn't ask for spousal support.
Okay.
I did not want...
Wait a minute.
I did not want it.
I'm sitting with a queen, a lady.
I didn't want it.
You didn't ask for anything?
I didn't ask for
When the story
anything.
is normally take them to the cleaners.
I think the only thing I put in the request was for a TV. Oddly enough, I wanted a television because I had just moved to my own space for the first time in over a decade.
Okay.
And I didn't have a television. And I think the only thing I asked for
So wait a minute.
It's wild. The only thing I asked for was a TV. And so I thought if I enter into this gracefully, then there should be no problems. Right? I didn't want anything. But somehow it's still a very tumultuous relationship. And
maybe you should ask for some more stuff.
Maybe I should have.
You know, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who we talking about here, but I mean, maybe that was angering because it's like, you know, all you want from me is a television?
I never thought about that.
When I walked out of that apartment when I was getting my divorce, I broke the television that was up there. I knocked the thing over and it shattered and I left. And here you wanted a TV.
That's all I wanted. Wow. That's all I wanted. I wanted my sons, when they came to my house, to be able to be entertained. It was an empty apartment. And so oh goodness, it's a wild story because I had left with nothing. I was a stay-at-home mom for, 9 years or so. So I had no income of my own. I had no financial footing of my own. And I was waiting. Until I was going to get offered a position. So at least I knew that I had the resources to be able to get my own space and take care of the kids. But I ended up packing up a pocketbook and an overnight duffel bag and just leaving.
Wow.
I didn't have any place of my own to go to. I didn't know where I was going to sleep. I did not have a job. But no lie, when I was walking down the street, this is when I was still living in Queens, I was walking down the street to the subway and my phone rang on the way to the train. Before I went into the subway system, I was walking down the stairs and my phone rang and it was an interview I had been waiting for about 4 or 5 weeks. So although I do not advocate for divorce, folks, I will say that sometimes the things that you're waiting for to feel secure, you may need to take action before you see how it's all going to work. Because I was waiting. I said, God, I'm looking for a sign. If you let me get a job, then I know it's time for me to go. But things had gotten so tense, so uncomfortable that I knew it was time and I had to make a faith decision. And as soon as I stepped out on the belief that since this is not God's will for me, there has to be more out there for me. God will work all things together for my good. And I have to trust him, even though I don't see and don't know how it's going to come together.
Absolutely. That's
when he showed up and showed me, I do have you. But I had to jump out the window. Yeah. Like I had to jump off the cliff in order to be caught and to see provision.
I want to share this with you, but I want you to hear this because there's a great revelation in this, right? God gave me this word like 2 years ago. He said, there are times where I will intentionally withhold blessings until you intentionally disconnect from the people that can experience that blessing with you. Literally, that's a word that the Lord gave me.
That's good.
He will literally sometimes, he will not answer your prayer in a tangible fashion because he knows that if he blesses you in the middle of the wrong relationship or in the wrong place, you're going to waste that favor on people that don't deserve it. You're going to share that blessing with somebody who hates you, that's only connected to you because of the blessing on your life. So he'll keep you in a place called limbo until you dismiss yourself, until you separate, until, like I want to say to Dr. Micaiah, until you walk with the level of courage that you did. Because I know we laughing, and some of the people watching probably laughing too. Like, all she wanted was a TV. I would have got everything I wanted from that joker, right? But the truth be told, that's proof of who you are. That's proof of your courage. Like, imagine how much confidence you have in yourself and how much confidence you have in how you're going to be sustained as a single woman, as a single mom, to be strong enough to say, I'm out of the relationship and I'm going uncontested. That's courage in you. And that's the proof behind who you are now post-divorce, presently in your life. So I commend you. I wish I had like a little hand clap button because I'd literally play a hand clap button.
Maybe we could add some sound over there.
But it's seriously, to be able to walk away, I went uncontested as well. I was hoping, but I didn't have nothing. I think I went and slept in my grandparents' attic once I left that place with a garbage bag of clothes that she threw out in the hallway and all that kind of stuff that day. And some of the little people, we were living in the projects in Poughkeepsie, 17th floor of this building called the Rip Van Winkle House.
No.
I always called it Trump Towers.
What?
It was luxurious. It was right on the Hudson River.
Luxurious.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. But,
okay.
You know, but it is. It takes courage, and we're not on here just celebrating divorce and encouraging divorce, but it takes so much courage to be able to say, I'd rather walk away from this with nothing than to stay in it trying to fight for something from it that's still going to be toxic. Because here's another message God gave me some time ago. You got to be intentional about getting rid of paraphernalia, the reminders, the trophies. Sometimes people say, I want this, I want that, I want this. You don't even realize you're carrying something that has a negative spirit lingering on it. Okay, you want that bedroom set where y'all slept for 15 years angry at each other?
Oh,
and
no,
now
sir.
you got it in your new house? That negative spirit is lingering in them sheets, and it's lingering on the headboard. So there are times when you got to say, you know what? God's going to take care of me. Like Paul said in Philippians 4:19, the same God who took care of me in jail is the same God who's going to supply all your need according to his riches and glory. So it takes courage to transition from that place and say, I don't want nothing. Like if you got children, I just want to make sure that my kids are taken care of. My children are well. And I'm going to start over and prepare for my future. And look at you and I today. Right?
No, that courageousness, it really is everything. And I think the other, I guess, characteristic that I needed to draw on was honesty. Am I being honest with myself about where I am right now? And I think that that's a tool for successful marriage, but also successful recovery from divorce is if I'm not being honest about my condition, and this is biblical as well, right? If I'm not being honest about or vocal about or seeking support around where I really am and taking a truthful look to assess and to identify the problems and to be able to communicate what I need, I'm going to be stuck forever.
Yeah.
And I was so busy pretending that everything was okay. I was so busy performing for social media, for the church. Because, I was active. I was praise and worship leader. I was administrator. I was all the things to all the people, right? A support. And we were the power couple or the couple that some of our friends aspired to become. Right? He's a successful businessman. I'm stay-at-home mom. I'm active in the PTA. It was all such a beautiful, glossy front, but it wasn't the truth. The truth was it was a broken relationship. The truth was there were arguments all the time. The truth is going to be the breaker of the chains that bind you in the relationships that you don't belong in.
Wow.
And so once I was honest enough, then I could step into the courage needed to move on.
Yeah. And that requires, I like to say 3 things. It requires to walk away and even requires to have a successful relationship. Natural intelligence, right? Work ethic, and then the most powerful one, I think, it would be our grit. That natural intelligence piece. These are the qualities that we have that nobody has to teach us. We're born with it. They're things that we know and things that we just get because of what's in us. God gave it to us before we were formed in our mother's womb. Those things we just know. Those things we sense, we feel. Y'all call it intuition. I think the ladies like to call it intuition. Us brothers, we call it discernment, more so. So you got to bring those things back to the forefront of your life. And then your work ethic, your work ethic today has to match the desired manifestation of tomorrow. How much greatness, how much success do you really want? And what high level of success are you willing to have a work ethic for to see that manifest in your relationship and even for yourself as an individual? And then, of course, your grit. That ability to be present and to fight through what you know is worth fighting for. The consistency, the courage, both of those are necessary when it's time to get out of an abusive situation and when you recognize you're in a blissful situation and you need it to have longevity. So I feel like all those qualities have been exemplified through your life, through my life, and how we've gone from that experience transitioning, and now we're married again. Mr. Brown taking great care of you.
Absolutely.
Lady Domi taking great care of me. How have you been able to adjust without expecting the same thing to happen again?
Well, those fears are very loud. The fear of repeating cycles. And I think that fear is a healthy fear. So there is a spirit of fear, which we know is not of God. But there is healthy fear that help to guide us and keep us from making the same mistakes over and over again. It's the way our brains are wired. The same way that a toddler would go up to a hot stove, touch it, and never touch it again. It's because of the fear of repeating the same pain. So the healthy fear is needed, I think, and is a necessary element of my successful marriage now, because that fear informs how I treat him well, how I am present with him. And I can't attribute it all to the fear, but I think we're so used to pushing fear to the side, ignoring fear, downplaying it, and not accepting it as a natural human emotion. So busy ignoring fear or acting like we don't have any, that we don't see it as being an element that could actually support us in creating healthier relationships. But if I can be truthful about my previous relationship and then have a healthy fear around, I don't want to do that again. That's the motivation to learn. What are the better ways? What are the better ways to do relationship?
So now you're highly intelligent. You're a clinical thinker, right? What is your thoughts on people having better marriages if they've been married once before?
Well, statistically, that's wrong.
You're right.
Statistically, with every marriage, it's more likely that you'll get divorced.
So that's I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
Wait a minute.
That's a thing.
So it's a thing that if you've been married before, it's more likely that you're going to get divorced again.
Correct.
Versus being married once and you say, oh, I learned so many lessons. This next marriage is going to be the best marriage in the world. So it's more like, so what about this? I don't know about your full situation, but is your current husband, is this his first marriage?
This was his second. With me, it was his second marriage.
Okay, so for Dami and I, this is her first marriage. This is my second. So I've had some interesting experiences with discovering how to even work through like my fears along with fears that she doesn't have because she's never experienced, the hell of divorce. What are the statistics on that? Like one being married twice and then one being a first timer.
That's good. I got to look into that. So I'll get back to you on the answer.
Part two.
We could talk about that in part two.
All right.
But as long as one party in the marriage has experienced divorce, the probability that there is going to be another divorce exponentially increases with every marriage. So not just from marriage 1 to marriage 2, but also if you get that second divorce and enter into a third marriage, it shoots up
even
the percentage is even higher so we would think that just experiencing something would be a teacher, but experience alone is not a teacher, which is why we're here having this conversation, because there has to be some openness, transparency, and vulnerability about what divorce is like, and relearning self to relearn relationship and rebuild after divorce. It's not the experience alone that teaches us how to be better, how to be a better partner, how to receive love better, how to give love better. It doesn't.
Wow. See, that's something that, me even as a preacher, you kind of assume that experience is going to give you the lesson, and you're going to be like, I'm never going through that again, and I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it absolutely isn't true. So the expectation for divorce is higher if you've been divorced before rather than it being a first go.
And the truth is, we take ourselves with us in every relationship we're in. So you can't escape you.
And then ourselves change and we evolve in the new relationship.
Exactly.
Then you're trying to find out who you are now. And wow, that's so deep.
The healing is so important. And what you said about using natural intelligence, using courageousness, using grit, those are all really important. And so is the emotional healing. And that's the part I think that's missing from the conversation in church. Where is the emotional support around someone experiencing identity loss, relational loss? And for me, it was layered. I graduated from my master's program the same year I got divorced. Although graduation is usually looked at as a celebratory thing, I lost my academic community. I lost the people I was in class with. I lost my identity role as a student for the first time since pre-K.
Yeah, because
you're a student as long as you know yourself. So I lost that role. I lost the marriage. My church, unfortunately, was falling apart. at that time. So there were layers of identity loss. But where's the emotional support? Where's the conversation? We're here to give you the conversation that's needed. You are not struggling alone. You are not suffering alone. You can absolutely be successful, healthy, healed, restored, and whole after divorce.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, it requires this thing that we really don't talk about a lot. Patience.
Oh, I hate it. Can I tell you I hate the word wait? And that is the theme of my life right now, waiting. But
so,
okay, that was just a little sidebar.
But you know what I learned? Waiting isn't always about just being dormant. Mm-hmm. Waiting is about, for the believers, it's about dwelling with the Creator, dwelling with God. Because while you dwell with God, guess what he's doing? He's teaching you. He's cleaning you up. It's almost like the vision that God gave the prophet Jeremiah when he sent him down to the potter's house to go and watch the potter and seeing all the mess. Because back in those days, everybody had pottery in their house. But certainly a potter's house had clay and all kind of materials laid out all over the place. But he had a special spot where he would work and make and mold whatever form of pottery he had in his mind. And it was a beautified project at the end. And our waiting seasons aren't easy. But I promise you this, it's always worth it. Whether you're waiting to get out of an abusive situation or you're waiting to discover who's the right one and you're waiting for the timing, waiting on God isn't always easy, but I promise you it's always worth it. So don't be in a place of waiting and worrying and stressing yourself out concerning what you're afraid of. Realize that waiting is a dwelling season, it's a development season, and it's not punishment. This season between divorce, or if you're already married, or if you're preparing to get married, or if you're in fear about getting married again, this season is not punishment. It's difficult because you're going through a lot of changes. I went through the same thing like you. I lost the marriage, lost a baby. I thought I was going to become the pastor, at my home church. And there was a timing that was told to me, I was going into it all thrilled. That didn't happen. It was like, go out and do your own thing. So I ended up shifting on that. I went and started a church, Rush Church, and that crumbled. It just didn't go well. I'm learning people. Like, I found out just because people say something to you don't mean they're telling the truth. I found out that,
baby.
I found out people that say they got the Holy Ghost lie. Some of the most dishonest people shouting on Sunday and falling out. But anyway, I learned that. And then I started getting kind of borderline famous on social media. I had grown to like 1 million followers. And this is like 2015, when if you had 1 million followers,
it's still a big deal.
I was on every television channel. I was getting interviewed. I was in Black Enterprise. And at that time, Huffington Post and all these Charisma, getting book deals. So I'm getting all this money from living in my grandparents' attic. Now I got $300,000 in my bank account. And I meet Dami, and now we're hanging out. And now I'm rediscovering dating again. And it's just so much. And then we get married. Then you realize things change when you get married and you have a baby. And it's like, God, when do you find your even plane? And that's when I discovered a successful life is not an even plane. Because an even plane is like this, right? Everything is straight. But a successful life is more like a graph. It's chaotic. Up and down, like a pendulum. One minute you're at the top, the next minute you're down, you're back at the top. Even a heart monitor. The sign of life is not the line looking smooth, but when that line is going up and down, up and down, up and down.